The fifth point is about writing. Do people know the two most popular forms of writing in the American high school today? Sorry? Texting, someone says, I don't think that's for credit, though, yet. But I would say that, as someone said, it is personal writing. It is either the exposition of a personal opinion, or it is the presentation of a personal narrative. The only problem, forgive me for saying this so bluntly, the only problem with those two forms of writing is as you grow up in this world, you realize people really don't give a shit about what you feel or what you think. It is my honest conviction that the people in this room, if we can pull your work together, if we can combine the insights that are contained locally through a strategic data project, combine them into clarifying, galvanizing ideas, that there is more force in this room to change the work of education than anywhere else. And that, I know, is a strange statement, because you might say, shouldn't you instead be meeting with the Council of Chief State School Officers? Those of you who say that probably have not attended as many of those meetings as I have. And most people, when trying to understand how that could have happened, right? In other words, how could it be that in a country locked against itself that something broke in this way? And they might wonder whether we had a legion of talented lobbyists or friends in the right places. Tom, who knows me well, knows how pathetic the beginnings of the Common Core Standard movement were. Think of a napkin. Think of a few people in a room with an idea. Think of the idea being this. The idea being this. If evidence did not inform the development of standards, they would inevitably be vast, vague, and useless. Now, why is that true? Why is it true that without the notion of evidence, standards are helpless? I'm making a very strong claim. Why? Have any of you ever, please raise your hand, been in a committee meeting before? So what happened in states is they got together committees to write standards. And they got into groups, right? So you'd have your geometry team, your statistics team, your data, you know what I mean? Your algebra team, right? That would be a math meeting. Or, you know, ELA, not knowing that, you know, just get everyone together in kind of a nice big old happy thing. And the only way to end the meeting is what? To include everyone's stuff. I'm not leaving here until you put in all my stuff. And I'm not leaving until you put in all my stuff. And everyone's like, cool, let's put in your stuff, let's put in my stuff, we are done here. Then teachers and students are in receipt of this, but that data, that evidence allowed us to turn back the tide. Do you realize how hard it is in education to have an eraser as well as a pen? You see, that's the secret of education reform. If we add more, my friends, we will lose. People are already quite busy. The notion that we've got a great education reform for all people's spare time is kind of a hilarious idea. What we did differently is we used it to force rank. That is, we didn't just have all this data, we decided that based on that data, you could decide what was critical and what was not, and make a bet.
It was clear to me at the very end when we were given a certification form with several criteria that we were expected to be rubber stamps. Now, that is the last thing I can ever be in my life. I served in town offices in Brookline, and I was never anybody's rubber stamp. But here we were basically to sign off and say, they're internationally benchmarked, they're research-based, they're rigorous, blah, blah, blah. And two of us, of the two of five members, the two were Milgram, the mathematician, and me, the only recognized national expert on English language arts standards. We were two of the five people who did not sign off on the standards. All the others did. But the claim can be made that the majority of the members of this committee signed off on the standards, even if they couldn't understand the math. It didn't matter. They signed off. So, who were the people writing these standards? That's what was the most frustrating part of the whole situation to me. The two lead writers, and their names are well known, David Coleman is now president of the College Boards, and Susan Pimentel were the two lead writers in ELA. Neither of them had experience teaching English in college or at the K-12 level. Neither of them had ever published any serious work on K-12, and neither had a reputation for scholarship or research. They were virtually unknown to the entire field, but somehow they had been chosen to transform ELA education in the US. Who recommended them and why, we still do not know. We can suspect that maybe Gates knew them, but we don't have any evidence. Interestingly, no one in the media, from the time their names were made known, no one commented on their lack of credentials for the task they had been assigned. Indeed, no one in the media ever showed the slightest interest in the qualifications of the standard writers, and yet you would think that would be the first thing anyone would want to find out something about.
Folks come up and give testimony to these various types of organizations and groups specific to mathematics that have signed off on this and that agree with this. As somebody as esteemed as yourself, what's your reaction to that?
Oh, it's routine. You get a letter from somebody that is a legitimate mathematician, and he says, as Bill McCullum is, and he says, we need your support. Now, I'm more or less quoting from the actual letter that he sent out. We need your support, and he sent this letter to the list of people that were mentioned. And what he said in the letter was, we need your support. Can you sign off on the core standards? And then he gave the usual blurb on what they were supposed to do. As I say, remembering that I've actually had major roles in writing the standards of 6 states, and an even more major role in writing the standards in California, I'm in a unique position to be able to evaluate what's likely to happen. But the people that were signing off on them knew very little, except that it was a reasonable sounding request from somebody in a reasonable position.
The core standards are built not just by choosing what was common between states, but by building on the best of state work. It would have been easy to develop the core standards simply by choosing what was most common or popular among existing state standards, and then you'd have the common standards. But that would have been mediocre or worse. Instead, what we did was working with the best states in the country, the states who had the most proven academic standards and performance. We took their best work. And at the same time, we listened deeply to the entire collection of states that worked with us, which, by the way, was 48 states in this country, who contributed their best work so that the standards would build further on top of that. These standards were not an attempt to collect what was done in states. They were an attempt to collect the best work that had been done and then build on top of them to a next generation of standards built on the best of state work to date. And I want to thank those states for their deep involvement in their process and their generosity in sharing their finest work. We stole from them shamelessly.
To say that the Common Core State Standards was a collaborative effort really understates what went on. There were multiple times where we were getting feedback from people around the country. And when I say feedback, I don't mean just a page here or a couple pages here. We oftentimes got 20 or more pages from a state team or from a professional organization about what they liked and what they didn't like. And I have to really credit the state teams and all the professionals around the country to help keep us on the right track. They didn't give up on us. They guided us along the way about what was working or not. And so this was a more than a collaborative effort. It was something that we did together from beginning to end. I just want to finish by saying that the name Common Core State Standards, to me, embodies the principles on which the standards are based. When I think of common in Common Core, I think of the collaborative nature of what went on, of the state teams that were with us every step of the way giving us feedback. When I think of the word core in Common Core State Standards, to me that says that we stayed really focused on what the evidence told us students needed to be college and career readiness. And last, Common Core State Standards, the state in the title, really says that these standards were developed by and belong wholly to the states. In fact, much of what is great about the standards, credit is due to the states, the teams, and the teachers that worked on them.
Because you might say, shouldn't you instead be meeting with the Council of Chief State School Officers? Those of you who say that probably have not attended as many of those meetings as I have. We took their best work And at the same time, we listened deeply to the entire collection of states that worked with us, which, by the way, was 48 states in this country. And I want to thank those states for their deep involvement in their process and their generosity in sharing their finest work.
It was clear to me at the very end when we were given a certification form with several criteria that we were expected to be rubber stamps.
To say that the Common Core State Standards was a collaborative effort really understates what went on. There were multiple times where we were getting feedback from people around the country.
But the people that were signing off on them knew very little.
Who were the people writing these standards? That's what was the most frustrating part of the whole situation to me.
Knows how pathetic the beginnings of the Common Core Standard movement were. Think of a napkin. Think of a few people in a room with an idea.